Hey everyone, this is Trevor, and welcome to our very first tutorial. What we're going to cover today is a simple text animation. Just going to teach you super basic stuff. We'll grow throughout our tutorials, but this is just going to kind of get you in there. Alright, so let's get started. First, let's build our folders, and we're going to build these folders the same way every time, because this is how I do it, and I suggest you have a similar type of folder structure. It should look like we got compositions. Again, go to my basics tutorials if you want to know how to create these folders and how to name them. I cover that in the very first basic tutorial under project window. We got elements, footage, and pre-comps. And then up in compositions, I like to put a little old in there. So that's what we got. That's our folder structure. Compositions, old, elements, footage, and pre-comps. We don't need it. I just like to get you guys into this habit, because once our projects start to get a little more complex, we're going to need to sort things through these folders. Okay, we got composition, so now we're going to create a composition. Make sure your folder's selected so that it goes in your compositions folder, and hit create a new composition. And then what we're going to do is name this in a world. We want it to be 1920 by 1080. It's probably your default settings. Square pixels, frame rate 23976. And then down here, let's just make this 1 second. So if we select from the left of the 5 and highlight, say 1:00, because we're only going to make one quick little thing. Hit OK, and you got a nice composition. Nice for our 1 second composition. All right. Next, we're going to create text. So you can do that two ways. You can come up here to the toolbar. This is where you have a bunch of fancy things, and we'll cover all these in different tutorials. But right now we're going to do text. So just click text. You can also hit Command T. That shortcut will bring you to text. And then just click anywhere in here, and it'll give you a little typing window. We're going to type in a world. Make it to be all caps. It could be whatever you want it to be, whatever font you want it to be. So let's just center this here. Now this is within 16 by 9 text safe. Again, so if I do something that you don't understand, like when I bring up this title safe bar, that's covered in my basic tutorial. So just go check that out. I'm not going to keep repeating that throughout the tutorial. Just want to remind you again, if it's something that I'm just doing and assuming you know, it's probably because I think you already went. All right. So our title safe, just a heads up, is this is a 16 by 9, but some shows, a lot of shows actually, still want your graphics to fall within the 4:3 title safe. Unfortunately, a lot of people still have square TVs, so they just center punch their shows and don't put them with mats. So you might, for the sake of this tutorial, we'll just put it into the center. And the way I scaled that down, you can scale it down a bunch of ways. So you can have it here, and with it selected, you can come up to here in character, and if character's not showing, go up to window and select character, and it'll show up. And right here where you see this T to the bigger T, you can click and drag, and your words will change. So you can change the size there. You can change it on composition window as well. So if you click one of these little squares, you click the square first, then you hold shift, and that will keep it proportional to how you originally did. If you don't hold shift, it'll change the height and width and everything. It goes crazy. But if you hold shift, it only does it within the proportions that you originally created it, which usually is what you want to do. So that's how I'll do, so I can just get it perfectly in the center, roughly. All right, and then so now we have in a world. Make that go away. That's what we want to land on. Now, next what we want to do is we want to affect the scale of this. So in your timeline, click your layer. You can click anywhere. You can click over here. You can click here. And you can bring down your properties like through here. You can bring down your properties through this little triangle, and then you can do transform. and that's where you'll see scale, position, opacity, rotation, all that. So that's the long way to do it, and if you want to do it, that's totally fine. But there are easy to remember shortcuts for the main transform properties that you're always going to be affecting, which are position, rotation, scale, and opacity. So I'll just cover them now, and I'll always say them for a while until everybody kind of catches on. So if you want scale, it's S, easy. If you want position, it's P. If you want rotation, it's R. And then the only one that's not the first letter is opacity, which is T. But for this one, we're going to do scale. So hit S, or you can scroll it down, whichever you prefer. S is just the easiest, because then you only see scale. If you scroll down, you're going to see everything, and it's just kind of, it's a lot of numbers to worry about. So we'll hit scale. And then what we want to do is we want to travel our timeline indicator to the 10th frame. So right down here, you can see it says 10F. That's the 10th frame, so you can drag it there. You can also, if you are the keyboard shortcut to move down a timeline without your mouse is page down and page up, or command right and command left. I like to use page down, page up, because then if you hold shift, it will jump 10 frames perfectly. So shift will give you 10 of what you're doing, and the regular page down and page up, or command right, command left, we'll just do 1 frame. So I'm going to do shift page down and get to 10 frames, get there however you want. And we're going to set a keyframe. Setting a keyframe is how you animate anything in After Effects. This is the heart of After Effects right here. This little stopwatch is the heart of After Effects. So if we click this right now we don't have any keyframes. So nothing's happening. This if I just play this, nothing. And I'll cover playing in a second. So what you want to do is you want to start a keyframe, and now there's 1 keyframe. Still nothing happens because there's nothing animating from any other keyframe. I'm assuming you kind of get keyframes because keyframes are in Avid and Premiere, but just to kind of go over it a lot more, and then I'll stop, I promise. On the next one I'll stop. And so now what we're going to do, I'd like to go to my end frame and set the keyframe, because I know that's where I'm going to land. Instead of trying to animate it to where I want it to be, I set it up where I want it to land, and then I'll set the keyframe, and then I work backwards. I just find that to be the easiest way to operate. And then we're going to scroll all the way back to home. And now, before we scale up, we want to do one more thing. If you come up here to your toolbar and you select this the pan behind anchor point, this little square, the shortcut for that is Y, by the way. So if I hit Y, you'll see it puts a little square with arrows in it next to my cursor. This allows me to move the anchor point, and this is the center point of your layer that you can set motions on. So for instance, you don't have to do this. I'm just going to show you an example. If I brought down rotation and I put the anchor point at this D, it rotates at the corner of the D. If I put it in the middle of this A, it rotates at the center of the A. So that's just how you get a specific rotation. So what we're going to do, this is where it is, we're going to take this anchor point and we're going to put it right in the center of the O. This way, when we scale up, it will go through the O, and we don't have to reposition anything. All right, so now we're ready to set our next keyframe. You can do it 2 ways. You can click the keyframe indicator here and then drag up, or you can also just drag up and it'll automatically create a keyframe. If you have 1 keyframe on your timeline, changing the value anywhere else on the timeline will automatically create a keyframe. So watch, if I click and drag, it automatically created a keyframe over there. You can click this and it's still the same keyframe, no animation will happen, and then you drag. Because if you click a keyframe or you're on a keyframe and you change the value, then it's going to change that keyframe. But really the easiest way is to just change the value and automatically create it. So we're going to just scale this all the way up until the letter's just off the screen. All right, so now it scales from big to little. Now, if you want to preview it, you can the shortcut to preview is the 0 key on your number pad. Now you'll notice that the animation is it's all very smooth, and then these last few frames it jumps a lot, like here to here. So it doesn't really have like a smooth, and the reason being is we scale it too large to too little in too little amount of time. 10 frames isn't enough for it to create it. So what we want to do is create an exponential scale. This is really easy. This happens a lot when you do text like this. So what you're going to do is click outside of these keyframes and drag a box around the 2 keyframes, just like that. So click and drag just around these 2 keyframes that you want, and then right click either of the keyframes, go down to Keyframe Assistant, Exponential Scale. And once you click on that, it's going to create keyframes in between the frames. See how it goes from 0 to 1, and there's a keyframe in between there? So now it is a more accurate drop. So if we, there you go. All right, and then one last touch is to put a little motion blur on that bad boy. Boom. Turn that motion blur on, and then it's going to render it out when you hit 0, and then it'll play it all the way through. So when you hit 0, if you haven't rendered it first, it goes frame by frame like that, rendering it out, and then it plays smoothly afterward. And there you go. You created a text graphic. Stay tuned for the next tutorial. Let's get crazy with this.